Are you forming an LLC yourself? Great. That's not hard at all. I think really lawyers that put on their websites that they work with corporate formation and that you see a lot of that as a big practice area on the website and they call themselves business lawyers. I'm just going to go out on a ledge and say corporate formation is not hard. So if there's a lot of emphasis on just forming a corporation or an LLC, then that attorney may not be doing some of the more complex work. Look, many of our clients form an LLC themselves. It's simple, other than I think the hardest part is figuring out whether you're going to be member managed or manager managed. But once you figure that out, it's super simple, be done in minutes. And that the simple part's really just forming the LLC, getting the EIN done. The complicated part, the part that's not simple, is the operating agreement. In Texas, we call it a company agreement. Now, the exception here is if it's a single member LLC, the operating agreement's like the partnership agreement. If there's one member, so what is it, an agreement with yourself? Sometimes banks require an operating agreement for a single member LLC, but oftentimes you can convince them that, look, we don't need one. It's just a single member. We don't need an operating agreement. And look, if you do need one, it's a simple document. I would say in that case, you could probably pull a form with ChatGPT, unless you just want to go to your attorney and they'll do it for, a real reasonable fee because it's a simpler document, then that's fine. But a multi-member LLC doesn't have a simple operating agreement, or shouldn't, because you shouldn't be using a boilerplate contract. This is the contract between members of the company. It spells out the ownership and control provisions, the transfer restrictions, and the restrictive covenants, all which are very important and need to be thought through. This is like the prenup of an LLC. I mean, honestly, think about it that way. You're getting into this relationship with this people and you want to spell out up front what your rights and obligations are, now moving forward, and in the event that the marriage fails, because marriages do fail. Lots of marriages, real marriages, between people, fail in the United States. Who's to think that, most business relationships, partnerships don't fail? I would say, in fact, probably more business partnerships fail than marriage relationships fail. You don't hear about as much, probably because most businesses fail within the first year. When they're not making money and they just implode, there's nothing really to fight over. But sometimes there is. Sometimes the business is successful or one member gets cut out, and I've seen it over and over and over again. They're, partnership disputes, partnership divorces. In those cases, the operating agreement really matters. And if a client comes to with, the operating agreement that they have, or they don't have an operating agreement, or the operating agreement they just did themselves or pulled online or ChatGPT'd it, they don't know what instructions to give. They don't know how to think through all these different things, or they pulled it from an old business. I see these too. And it's not really applicable or helpful to the situation. Well, guess what? It's too late. That's what you're dealing with now. So for some money up front, just like you would get insurance on a house, it's just some money you're going to spend so you don't spend more later fighting over it, because litigation is way more expensive than doing any type of transactional work. So that's what I've got. If you're forming, do it. You can do it yourself. No big deal. If you feel comfortable doing it, do it yourself. Your lawyer at most may have to just change the company from something like a member managed to a manager managed if that piece is done wrong. But the operating agreement should definitely be done by an attorney with the client's input to draft something that is applicable to the situation to avoid risks and issues later.